Hello and welcome back to another episode of Math with Sohn. Today, we're going to be figuring out the missing side lengths of a right triangle using sine, cosine, and tangent. So, if you have a problem that is a right triangle, and you only know one side length out, for instance, if I knew just this hypotenuse, and I wanted to figure out what this side is right here. If you're given one angle measurement, like I'm given this angle right here is 28 degrees, then we can do that using trigonometry. We are going to either use sine, cosine, or tangent. It does not matter which one gets used as far as the process is concerned, but it does matter which one you type in your calculator. And it will be dictated by how you identify your opposite, which is across from the angle, your hypotenuse, and your adjacent. In this case, we are looking for the opposite, and we have the hypotenuse. So you go through and you're like, all right, which one has the opposite and the hypotenuse? And you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's sine. Opposite and hypotenuse is on sine. So we're going to fill this in exactly the way we see it. It is sine of the angle equals opposite over hypotenuse, right? So that would be sine of the angle 28. We fill in that 28 equals the x over 19. Now, when you have this, you're going to have one of two scenarios. You're either going to have the x on the top of this fraction, like it is here, or the x on the bottom of the fraction, which it's not. If the x is on the top, then you will be multiplying by 19 to kind of cancel this out, and multiplying by 19. And your answer would be whatever you get when you type in your calculator, 19 times sine 28. Now, I highly, highly recommend you get a calculator that kind of looks like this. And that way, when you type it in as the 19 times the sine of 28, you can get it to look exactly like this. And then all you have to do is hit equals, and it tells you that it equals 8.91. Or, well, 8.92. We can round it up. So x is equal to 8.92. We are done. Let's do a few more. So, let's see here. Let's do a triangle. And on this triangle, I am going to throw my angle in over here as 41. And this is going to be x, and this is going to be 32. So I'm going to label my opposite side. I am going to label my hypotenuse, which is always across from that right angle, and my adjacent. I look, and I'm like, all right, what do I have? What do I want? I have my adjacent. I want my opposite. Okay, so I look through. Opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse. Opposite over adjacent is tangent. So I fill in with the tangent button with the tan. So we have tan of our angle, which is 41 in this case, equals opposite. We're looking for it. It's x over 32. 32 is on the bottom of the fraction. All you have to do to solve is then multiply by 32. And the only difference between this problem and the last problem is that you have to hit the tan button. But really, it was kind of the same thing, wasn't it? You just had maybe different sides that were given to you. So I'm going to type in my calculator 32 times tan of the angle 41. And we get our answer from that. X is equal to 27.82. It's as easy as that, everybody. Let's do another one. So, here we have 21 for the angle. We're going to have x over here, 26 over there, 90. So identify your opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Here's the opposite. Here's the hypotenuse. There's the adjacent. So in this case, we have our adjacent. We're looking said it wrong. We have our hypotenuse. We're looking for the adjacent. So we're going to focus on whichever one of these trig functions uses hypotenuse and adjacent, and it's cosine. That has adjacent and hypotenuse. So I fill it into that formula instead. Cosine 21 equals x over 26. X is the adjacent. 26 was the hypotenuse. Again, we have x on the top of the fraction. This is going to be the last one like this. We multiply by 26. It goes away. We have 26 times cosine 21 equals x. And we type that in our calculator, 26 cosine of 21, and we get 24.27. X equals 24.27. All right, so we're going to take this and we're going to do the same sort of thing, but we're going to just change it up slightly. Instead of having the x on the bottom of the top of the fraction, it's going to be on the bottom, and it's going to just change one thing in your calculator. So let's say that I have a right triangle, still right triangle, nothing changes there. 36. We're going to make this right here the x, and this a 15. So in this case, we still do everything else the same. We're going to label our opposite side. We're going to label the hypotenuse, which is across from the 90, and the adjacent. We're still going to look and be like, what do we have? What do we need? We have hypotenuse and adjacent. So I'm going to again use cosine. I'm looking for the hypotenuse, so that will be my x this time. So it's going to be cosine of the angle 36 equals hypotenuse over adjacent over hypotenuse, which would be 15 over x. The adjacent was 15, the hypotenuse was x, 15 over x. If the x is on the bottom, there's going to be like a switcheroo that happens here. So instead of taking the 15 and multiplying by the 36, what's going to happen is these are going to switch locations, and it's going to be 15 and the cos 36 would be here. Which means in our calculator, we're just going to do 15 and divide by cosine 36. So when the x is on the bottom, you end up dividing instead of multiplying. When the x was on the top, we just multiplied. When the x is on the bottom, you divide, but you're always multiplying or dividing by that function. Cos 36, tan, whatever it happens to be, whatever it is, you're dividing by the cosine, the tan, or the sine. Or multiplying by the cosine, the tan, or the sine. So, I'm typing in 15 divided by cosine 36 equals 18.54. And that goes here for the hypotenuse, 18.54. One more like that, and we're wrapping this video up. So, let's see. Let's say that we have this angle right here is 40 degrees. And let's say I'm looking for this part, and I know this is 10 feet. So I'm actually giving it a unit of measurement now too. So in this case, still all the same thing. Opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. The opposite is always across from the angle that is given. It's not in the same orientation every time. So the opposite is across from that 40. Hypotenuse is across from the 90. Adjacent is the one that's next to the 40. We have opposite and adjacent we're looking for. That's tangent. So tan of the angle 40 would equal opposite over adjacent. Opposite over adjacent. X is on the bottom. We have to divide instead of multiply. So 10 divided by tan of 40 would give us x. 10 divided by tan of 40 gives us x, and x is 11.92. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this episode. Until next time, stay happy, and I will see everybody later.